Hello and welcome to the TrainDL Summit. I don't think I need to convince anyone in this room that AI is a hot topic right now. Young people constantly encounter AI technologies in their everyday lives. That's why they need to learn how to use them effectively. But perhaps even more so, they need to learn how to evaluate them critically. And since data is the fuel for every AI application, young people need to learn how to handle data competently. That's why AI education belongs in schools. And that's why teachers in every field need to be empowered to teach data and AI skills. AI technologies such as ChatGPT show us how quickly technologies change and how quickly new skills are required. So, how can we help teachers prepare new generations for the digital world? How can we prepare students to lead a self-determined life in this age? This is what partners from Lithuania, Austria, and Germany have been working on over the past 3 years in the project Teacher Training for Data Literacy and Computer Science Competencies, TrainDL for short, funded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union. TrainDL has brought together policy experts, scientists, and teachers who have approached these questions in a policy experimentation process. As a result, the partners have developed recommendations on how to implement data literacy and AI education in curricula and educational concepts for teacher trainings and schools. They also have developed teaching materials that you can try out during the summit. So as you can see, many people and many disciplines are involved. And that's why we have put together a very diverse and varied program for you. You will hear insights from policymakers, you will hear insights from researchers, and from students and from teachers. You will learn, for instance, about future prospects in education and policy building. But hopefully, we will also learn something from you in the discussions and in the poster presentations, because your expertise is valuable. So I would like to encourage you, please use the next 2 days for extensive discussions and explore together how can we teach future skills in the here and now. What is the scientific state of the art? And what does it look like in practice? My name is Michaeli. I'm a senior policy officer at the German Informatics Society, and I'm very much looking forward to guiding you through the next 2 days. Please don't hesitate to approach me or my colleagues who are here and happy to help you with any questions. Probably you already met Lasse and Eddie at the registration desk. There's also Rika and Anna behind over there, and Christina on the Zoom meeting. So we are all happy to help you with any questions. So before we dive into the program, I would like to give you some practical information. So please spread the word and keep in touch with us also after the summit. You can use the TrainDL hashtag and also AI education and data literacy. And you can, of course, link us with our accounts you can see on this slide. And I would also like to welcome our online guests. I'm really happy that you joined us from all over the world. And I'm also really looking forward to your input and your questions. And I would like to ask you to post your questions and comments in the chat, and Christina and Alinur will take care of them and speak them aloud in the plenary. So, now I'm pleased to welcome 3 experts who have much to say on this subject. As they are part of the consortium, they have contributed a lot to the project. So I would say a warm welcome to the Secretary General of the Austrian Computer Society. Welcome, Ronald Bieber. Welcome to the head of the TrainDL team in Vilnius, Professor Valentina Dagiene. And welcome to the executive director of the German Informatics Society, Daniel Krupka. The stage is yours.
Yeah, welcome also from my side, Ronald, Valentina. It's good to see you. After 3 years in person, we meet often in person. We don't see each other that often in person, so it's good to have you here in Berlin. Welcome to all of you at the participants of this conference. Welcome here in Berlin. Welcome to you outside there in the world, in the stream. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to open up and say a few welcome notes at this TrainDL Summit here in Berlin. This conference marks the preliminary endpoint of a 3-year journey that was really outstanding for us as German Informatics Society. The project, which you read here, Teacher Training for Data Literacy and Computer Science, Competencies, brought together 10 institutions from 3 European countries and various backgrounds: practitioners, teachers, researchers, policymakers from state level, from the federal, from the national level, and even from European institutions. And if I would have been asked what my key takeaway is from this 3 years, besides that it's really challenging to manage such a complex project, it is that it is so good and it is so much that we can learn from each other. Researchers from teachers and practitioners in school, policymakers from practitioners, but also we as computer science societies and communities can learn a lot from policymakers if we are pledging for more and better computer science education in schools. I want to point out 3 things that I've learned personally from this project. The first one is that the personal exchange is really key. We've gone through the pandemic. It was our luck that in the beginning we had the chance to meet, and now we're meeting again, but there were long months and years where we couldn't meet and just meet through through the online world. It makes a difference if you're in person there and work together and get to know each other. And the second thing is thinking outside the box and looking beyond the own horizon is really, really helpful. And I had the pleasure to manage the advisory board of this project, and I've learned a lot from the other board members. For example, how to campaign for CS in schools more efficient and better. And probably we might hear something about that from Hannah Weisman, who will be is here already, but will be giving some insights tomorrow from code.org from the United States. Also tomorrow, Georgi Dimitrov will be here from the European Commission, because the European Commission is not only funding this project, but also a very strong supporter for computer science in schools. And the third point is to listen to each other and to learn from each other is really essential, especially in these challenging times. It's really important to listen to each other, to understand the motives and sometimes also the constraints of the other. And therefore I'm really happy that we come together here. Please use those upcoming 2 days to meet each other, to exchange the ideas on computer science and data literacy education, and to learn from each other, learn from the other, use the exchange. And then I'm finished. Just want to say a few thank you notes. First, towards our partners within the consortium, thank you so much. It was really good to work with you, and I'm pretty sure we will continue that in other scopes and in other areas. I want to say thank you to the European Commission for making this possible, funding this project, and especially I want to thank my team with Anna, Maike, Rika, and all the other guys within the German Informatics Society who run the project and especially conducted or set up this conference with literally no, or at least very few resources. So thank you all. Thank you for being here, and enjoy the conference.
Hello, everybody. I would like to say a few words about my country, Lithuania, Litauen. Okay, thanks. So, Victoria, you always are supporting in practical things. So that Lithuania, Litauen, and for us, this project is very important. I would like to share that Lithuania developed, actually upgraded informatics curricula from primary until upper secondary school. And we started exactly just before COVID. And we also, this project made us stronger to involve, for example, like to focus on data literacy, to focus more on artificial intelligence and some connected topics to ethics, security, and so on. So it means that we as partner from these three countries, we work together and we contributed also to our countries and to our teacher education. This is very, very important that each can get some knowledge, some recommendations to do better curricula and teacher training. I really love to work with teachers, and we learned from each other a lot. And thanks, Victoria, for example, that you made several workshops in Druskininkai, that gave our teacher, primary school teacher, Alina, that they do workshops, increased knowledge, and they teach primary school students. And in Lithuania, primary school is a 4 years period is from grade 1 to 4. So it means with small children. We developed some material. So this is great opportunity. I see here Marika from Finland, that from Turku University. We collaborating together now, developing some exercises on artificial intelligence and data literacy in VILE, visual learning environment, that is based in Turku University. So it means this project also is going not only in these three countries, but outside, and contribute to improve our teacher education and, of course, our pupil education. And what I would like, I see here many that like Bebra's friends here, and from this community that we started 20 years ago. So now it is growing in Austria, in Germany, in Lithuania, in all our world now in this Bebra's challenge on informatics and computational thinking. Now we are more than 80 countries. So it means that we can contribute with from the TrainDL, from our resources, we can contribute to other countries who need support, maybe who can support us as well. So this is really nice to be here. And from Lithuania, we have here a big team. We have teachers, we have policy makers, researchers. That is really good to work together and to continue working. I think that this project is like, as we telling in Lithuania, that it is ending, but it's start of new activities. And let's make connections, and especially today, tomorrow, make connections that we can continue in other projects, other activities, or just volunteering work. It's really very important to be volunteers, especially young people, older people, and all of us. We are educators. Thank you.
Yes, it's time to say thank you, and it's also for me now to say thank you. And I was really proud. It was 5 minutes, not 2. Now I have only 1 minute, I know. Okay. I was really proud to become to be part of one of this consortium. Because with you, Valentina, with the founder of a Beaver of Informatics, and also a special thank with you, Daniel, because it was really for me a burning desire to make a combined project with the GI, with the German Informatics Society, and it was 5 years ago, I think we were sitting together and said, look, maybe we have some ideas, and now we stay here with with a successful project that we can show up here, and you will see it, and yes. And a special thank you also, of course, to my colleague, Martin, because he was guiding the project on the OCG side through that challenging, as you mentioned, it was in the middle of a pandemic, through this challenging time. For us, it was also an extraordinary experience to this combination with the ministries and public sector, because that is, we were very proud also that our Ministry of Education took part of that project, and we have to make a new cooperation with them. That's very, as well as the content as strategic-wise. And hopefully this project, and especially the deliverables that you will see in the next 2 days, will have a sustainable effect on today's and tomorrow's way of teaching. And here I thank you already, the participants of this summit, because of the today workshop or for the workshop tomorrow, you can participate and contribute to the success of this project. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Ronald, Valentina, and Daniel. I would also send our best wishes and greetings to Ulrike Lucke. Unfortunately, she got sick and she can't be there today, but I should send to all of you also her best wishes. Ulrike, I hope you get well soon and that you will be here tomorrow. Now it's my pleasure to welcome an AI expert with an outstanding CV. She is an analog astronaut. She's a mathematician and she holds a PhD in physics. She founded her own company specializing in software services for weather and Earth observation data. Today, she leads the Areas team for AI for Environment and Sustainability at the Basque Center for Climate Change. Welcome, Carmen Köhler.
Hello. I'm going to look for my presentation. So thank you. Is it? Okay, test, on. Okay. So I'm really happy to be here today, and hello also to all the online people. I heard that they're numerous, so welcome to your cozy homes. It's very nice here as well. I'm really happy to talk to you today about how to never stop exploring, AIxploring. So, how many of you grew up without a computer or mobile device? Hands up.
What do you mean? What is growing up until then?
Yeah, we never grow up, we only get older, like Walt Disney says, no? Yeah, I totally agree with that. Who had a computer at home when they grew up? Yeah, we all grow up. And who had a mobile in there already? Okay, very interesting. So I remember the day. We see on the left side, this is a Commodore 64, for the people that don't know that. So I remember my day when my dad came home with that beauty on the left when I was a teenager. And I was very excited because we did not have phones, we didn't have any of that. And when you needed something, you went to a library. And my dad came home with a Commodore 64, and I thought that was the most amazing thing ever. So I thought, okay, in school, I'm going to start with the subject computer science, because I loved it. When I was younger, I also I always practiced like the 10-finger system for writing and stuff, and I thought it was great. And I remember the first day when I was able to send a message to my colleague at school, and just like that, and I wrote him hello, and he saw hello on his screen, and I thought like, mind blown. And then the thing is, I have an older brother, and my older brother is a lot different than I am, and he always had a bit of beef with the teachers. So when I arrived in computer science, he's like, another Köhler. You know? So that didn't go too well, so after half a year, I stopped with computer science, and I went into home economics, so I learned cooking. Yeah, so that was my computer science career for that. That stopped at that point. And the thing is that I still had that in me, and I also thought like with mathematics, I had the same, that I always thought like if I study, I would love to study mathematics, but I just didn't think that I had the stuff for it. And so I just read books about it, and I just continued always dreaming to become an astronaut and to study mathematics and program in space. So obviously, when I finished with school, I became a hairdresser. Okay, that sounds a bit off now, but I do cut hair since I'm 10 years old. And so I started quite early, and then it was also very nice. You learn a lot of skills. For example, before I was very shy and I didn't talk, so I learned talking during the hairdressing. So here I am, now talking. And so one day I had a client visiting me at the hairdresser, and I cut his hair. He's a professor here at the Humboldt University. And you always chitty-chat, no, when you're at the hairdresser. And he said, do you read? And I said, yes, I read. And then he asked, what book do you read? And I said, it's Fermat's Last Sentence. That was a book about a mathematical proof. And he was a bit like, okay, my hairdresser is reading a book about a mathematical proof. So he was a bit like, oh, where does that come from? And I told him that I always wanted to study mathematics, but I just didn't think that I had the stuff for it. And he told me, when you are interested in something, then you're automatically good at it. And so, after the hairdressing, I studied mathematics. And I remember there the first day sitting there and all the beautiful equations, and they always really relaxed me, and I was like, okay, this is a good place. And then they also said, like with mathematics, you can do everything, but also absolutely nothing. I think it's more a mindset, no, that you can see. Do we have mathematicians here? No? Oh, okay. We'll talk later. So I really liked it, and you learn a lot of like how you think, more than never afterwards did I ever do a proof anymore after finishing studying mathematics. And then while I was at it, I also did my PhD in physics. Physics of the atmosphere, more to say. And I am at the moment, yes, I already said that I have a company that deals with weather and satellite data services. And I also think like the satellites and the Earth observation pictures, they're a bit like astronauts, no? That they fly around Earth and they take pictures and look at the Earth from up there. And I think it is very, very special. But my dream to become an astronaut was still alive. And so, in 2015, I had a friend of mine that I did my PhD with, and he wrote me an email saying, if you can't go to space yet, maybe you can become an analog astronaut. And so 2015, I was chosen the first female analog astronaut by the Austrian Space Forum. So good for the Austrians. So you're probably thinking now, yeah, we heard the word analog astronaut now a couple of times, but you probably don't really know what that is. I didn't know for a long time either. So analog astronauts are astronauts that are people that stay here on Earth to conduct science in Mars-like, in analog Mars situations. Why that works really well is that we have very geological and astrobiological features here on Earth that are very similar to what we have on Mars. We see this on the picture here. On the left is Morocco, and on the right is Mars. And if you wouldn't have the letters underneath, I think it would be quite difficult for you to be able to tell which one is which. It's also that the pictures were taken only a couple of weeks apart, and at that time in Morocco there was a sandstorm. so it gives that nice Martian atmosphere. So what we do then in those Mars-like situations is that we wear a spacesuit simulator and work on different workflows that we will do when we go to Mars. Here we see that on the Köhler Glacier, for example, even though you say like, that doesn't look like Mars. Yes, it does, because also on Mars we have rock glaciers and permafrost. But we do have other missions, like in 2 weeks I will go to Armenia for a month, and there we will have also very nice Martian vibe. I'll show pictures of that next time. So during that mission, that was the first mission in 2015, and it is quite interesting what we have to do different now when we fly to Mars. So when we fly to Mars, it takes around 7 months. So you don't want to forget anything, right? So if you forget your keys to the Mars habitat or something, yeah, you won't go back for 7 months. Also, if we say, Houston, we've got a problem on Mars, it takes an average 10 minutes to go travel to Earth, and then if they ask, oh, what's the problem? It takes another 10 minutes around to go back. So we also, the time lag that we have on average of 10 minutes between Mars and Earth, that is something that we also take into account, because that changes the whole situation. Because like that, we don't have the mission control center anymore like we have in Houston now. We have a mission support center, which is located in Austria, before in Innsbruck, now it will be in Vienna, where we then with 10-minute time delay have the communication. What changes? It changes that on Mars we have to be a lot more autonomous. And that is where it comes into play again, that we have to have, of course, artificial intelligence, and we collect a lot of data, so we are able to take decisions based on data. And we have a lot of robots also following us around, helping us on Mars here. This was 2015. Now this time we come like with 4 huge biggies with arms and stuff. So yeah, we really test the human-machine interface, which is really, really nice. Because when we fly to Mars, we have to know what we're doing. This is here, and I don't know how well you see the screen. Is it? Yeah, so this is Oman, and in the middle there's an analog astronaut. So when we were there, it felt like these were really the first astronauts on Mars. Because the spacesuit simulator, I have to say, also weighs 50 kilos, and it takes 2 hours to put on. So now in Armenia it will be quite interesting, because we will be 6 analog astronauts in a habitat for a month, and we're only allowed to go outside with a spacesuit simulator. And how many people are inspired now and want to know more about space? Yeah. And the nice thing is that it's the same with kids. And that is why we, about 5 years ago, and I have 2 people here that were also engaged in Code for Space. It's an elementary school competition that we started called Code for Space, where kids can program a Calliope Mini and develop different experiments for space, for the International Space Station. And the winner was actually allowed to, with the Calliope of the winner, the experiment was allowed to fly to space. And what I really liked about that project, and also continuing with workshops for Code for Space, is that there are also so many girls that get very, very inspired by this topic. We notice when we have more like rover Mars workshops, we have a lot more boys, but when we do Code for Space and just astronaut things, we have a lot of girls that are, we always have more than 50% of females that are really inspired by this subject. So it was really then, everything worked out, and we see here the female astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti with the Calliope and the winner experiment on the International Space Station with a space bouncing ball, it was so called. At that time, I was then working at the Fraunhofer Institute already and was working in AI in education. Other different projects that we had, for example, was AI in vocational schools. By the way, for Code for Space, you have also like e-learning on YouTube, and we have a lot of material also which you can download for free. So if anybody's interested in that, feel free to come up to me. Another one is that AI in vocational schools is KI in der Berufsausbildung, where we also have a e-learning and also have a lot of material for teachers that are interested. The interesting thing was when we developed AI in vocational schools is that we went to vocational schools and held the tutorials and did the workshops with them, and then noticed that there was a huge gap in when we did the workshop with the younger people and with the teachers. And that was really interesting that what they needed really was very, very different. When we were with the younger people, they're like, AI is totally normal, like when I play computer games and it rings at the doorbell, I just go to the doorbell and the AI continues playing for me. No? For example, they're just really have AI or different applications using AI really integrated in their life. It's really different if you look at the teachers, because when they hear artificial intelligence, they get a bit intimidated, especially as they're supposed to teach it and have to be the smarter one in the field, that they get intimidated by the topic. And some were able then that we talk to them and we can say, okay, that the younger people then hold different workshops with the rest of the school, that the teachers have to facilitate rather than to teach the different subjects. So then also in the next program that we developed, AI for schools, we then decided to really do two different routes. We really decided to have an AI for schools for teachers and one for students. And they're very, very different. And this is from the Fraunhofer Institute, and they're doing that. So if you're interested, I can also connect you there. So what is different is that for the students, we really do go into AI. We really go into programming also with them, because for them they're all digital natives. No, they're all really easy to. They can just drag and drop a lot of the AI applications. They're really quick with developing different tools. Whereas for the teachers, we go more into like getting closer to AI, taking the fear of artificial intelligence, and then also talking about ethics as well. That is something that we also do, of course, with the students, but in different ways. And that to really show also the teachers that it's not only for computer science that you need to have the data literacy. It's not only in computer science that you have the applications. No, in almost every subject you have in school, there's somehow you can integrate the knowledge on machine learning, on artificial intelligence. There are so many applications that you can do with the kids, and you really have to teach them how, because there's so much coming. Because when we look at different pictures, I mean, you can just generate whatever you want, no? You can generate pictures. Yeah, I don't know why I chose that. I thought it was funny. But also there are different examples nowadays.
Muss ich nie wieder Fremdsprachen lernen? In jede beliebige Fremdsprache wechseln, ganz ohne Vokabeltest. कृत्रिम बुद्धिमत्ता हमें एक कदम करीब लाती है. Aktuelle Tools können bereits mit wenigen Klicks den Text eines vorhandenen Videos übersetzen, clone my voice, and even generate matching lip movements. Out of nowhere, I find myself speaking English or Portuguese fluently. Às vezes, a tradução ainda falha.
So that is an example, no, for the translations that are just, I mean, the lip movement is changed, there's a translation from the text, and different language. I mean, it's crazy, no? And you don't really notice it. Another thing, who knows the Zora? It's from OpenAI from a week ago, where you have like a prompt to video now, a text to video. So you have, this is a video that I'm going to show now, is a flock of paper airplanes, because I thought we were still with space and flying today. Paper airplanes flutters through a dense jungle, weaving around trees as if they were migrating birds. And that is then the video you get, just if you write that prompt. And that, I mean, there are a lot of different videos for different small prompts that you can write, and it's crazy how realistic they look. So we're not only here like with fake news, but it's really starting to become fake reality, because there are also a lot of videos with people, and you don't know are these real people or they're not real. And all of that is so important to teach to the students, to know how do I deal with that. First of all, it's super interesting to create those videos, because it's also very creative, but then also to understand which sources can I trust? What is trustworthy nowadays? And that is very, very important. And also the question when we use ChatGPT. I mean, So congratulations that your proposal went through this 3 years ago for this project. I know, like, we wrote different proposals for science now, and then the people share their screen and they just have like 5 ChatGPT windows open, no? And you're just like, okay, let's go over this proposal, no? Or like with different things. It's so easy nowadays to do things with ChatGPT, but how will we go in the future? How will we be able, in a world where we rapidly develop artificial intelligence, how can we nurture human intelligence? And that is very important, because in also school how do we know that something is not made by ChatGPT? How can we then see how smart or where somebody needs help? How can we support the kids? Because before, I mean, you could Google some things, of course, but now with ChatGPT, I mean, you can write everything that you want, right? So I think that we really have to revolutionize how we deal with it, and how we still keep on making people think and develop their human intelligence. And here we see, for example, with the face recognition, that you could say, like, okay, today I know that Peter didn't pay attention 40% of the time, and you can just evaluate that, you know, by face recognition. Those things, of course, nowadays work, but do we want to use them, for example? How many things do we want to use, and what for? You know, so I think that we're living in really interesting times where we, I think, have to be fast-paced and make decisions to be able to use the things in a way that is ethical. Because at the end, of course, where data exists, we can use artificial intelligence, but for the students nowadays, I mean, especially the right side where the social media is very important, because the statistic is at the moment that kids are around 3 hours every day on social media, and if they have to understand, what does the TikTok algorithm do? What happens with the data that I put into the phone? One boy said, my data is safe, my mobile is in my pocket. No, you have to it's important what you do with the passwords, what happens with cybersecurity. All of those things are super important, but how can teachers put those in their curricula? I have a lot of friends that are teachers, and even without artificial intelligence, I mean, they have enough work. No? So I think it's really important that when we try to support teachers, that we really put everything to their use, that they can just download, just say, here, you do it, and that they don't have to take up too much of their own time to integrate those things, the new things, into their curriculum. Because I think only then it will work. Because at the end, artificial intelligence, I mean, it started that you just have pattern recognitions, no? That you have to just see, like, okay, is it a blueberry muffin? Is it a chihuahua? Who knows? But the important thing is that you really have to see, in order to have a fair AI, you have to have diverse data. And that is also something that we have to transmit. Because if we, for example, stay at the example that I started with the analog astronauts in space, there was the 3rd class of analog astronauts. At that point, there were about 10 male analog astronauts, and I was the only female. And we do a lot of testing. At the end, when you go to space or when you are part of those missions, you are like the experiment bunny, you know? And then you always have to sign a lot of things, you create a lot of data, and then the latest, the GDPR was not held really when I have to put my gender, no? So I was like, female, and then it was clear whose data it was, no? And so nowadays we're 2 females and 15 analog astronauts, so still it's a bit 50-50 chance of who the data belongs to when you cross the female one. But it's not only for us on the Earth, but also in space. And this is the astronaut class from the European Space Agency from 2009, and yeah, we had Samantha Cristoforetti. So in general, when we talk about space, we don't have a lot of data about females. So it's about 10% of the people in space were female, and there are a lot of, especially like medical issues, that are very, very different. For example, a lot of the hormonal things are quite clear, but there are also a lot of other things. For example, that astronauts, when they come back, they have quite a lot of problems with the eyes. Interestingly, that doesn't hold for females, and they don't understand why at all. The thing is, when you're in space, because you don't have the gravity, it's as if you're kind of lying with your head tilted downwards in a degree of -7. So you always have a bit of the flushed face, no? But you have a lot more pressure on the eyes, and that's why they thought, oh, it's normal that they have problems with the eyes. But why do the females don't have that so much? But for that, we don't have enough data, for example. So, yeah, just know that you know your data, understand your data, because if you know that you only have triangles, you cannot get squares, no? And that is something that is super interesting and very important for the kids to understand when they look at their machine learning. Because that is not only important for space, but also, for example, in hairdressing. When I did the classes for AI for vocational schools, I also talked to a lot of teachers from hairdressing, which was really, really nice. And they do a lot with programming as well, for example, and they taught data literacy and computer science competencies. And one thing, for example, is, I mean, everybody or the kids know it, with the social media, if you have the different filters, and that is something that you can use very well at hairdressing, for example, because then you already know that a hair color or a haircut might not look so good, and then you don't have to shed too many tears afterwards. So nowadays, I'm at the Bus Center of Climate Change, and I'm the team manager from AIRIES, which is the group from Artificial Intelligence for Environment and Sustainability. And what I really like about those projects that deal with climate data and climate change is that there's I mean, the clouds will not be so sad when you do the forecast wrong, no? And with the bias and stuff, not so much happens because you don't have private data. So I think Earth observation data or measurements are a really nice basis to start with the kids. There's a nice project also from GI, together with the University of Bochum, with the Climate Data Entrepreneurial Club, for example. It's also for education in that field, because they can feel like the sad, shout out. And because that way they can also feel like astronauts, right? If they look at satellite data, for example, and it's not privacy data, so you don't have those ethical aspects behind it as well. So I think the most important thing is really to ignite the curiosity of the students and kids, because that way they want to learn, that way they get interested, and then they want to do the things. So I think it's very important to never stop learning and never stop exploring. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Carmen, for your wonderful keynote speech. So are there any questions from the online people or you to Carmen? Yeah. Yes.
What kind of experiments are you doing in the analog astronauts in the next one? In the next mission, we have very different experiments this time. We have, for example, it's called the exploration cascade, that we kind of pretend that we don't know the region, and then we try to map the region and find out more about it for using different cycles. No? So we have drones, for example, that map the region. We have the rovers that drive around, and then we go out as analog astronauts and take geological measures. And then we have also in the habitat, we have a lot of things where we can prepare the rocks. It's crazy that to make them only a couple of micrometer thick, and to analyze where they came from, basically to understand really the process, so really pretending we fly to Mars and are in a region that we don't know. So that is, for example, some of the things that we do, and we have a lot of psychological experiments, why I said before with the privacy data, and then I'm female, always has a huge impact on that. So we have to we journal, we have to see like with the stress. We also have ESA coaches to see like who has which personality, what kind of teams work well together. That is a very, very important thing. One thing for the analog astronauts, one criteria was, for example, to have humor, because I think that is the most important thing, because we will not sleep, we will be very stressed, so at least laugh while you're stressed. So we have a lot of those things as well.
Are there any other questions?
and I don't know, online?
Yeah, Daniel.
Okay.
Thank you. Can you elaborate a little more on the program? How do you qualify for that? Who can apply for that? Because I think maybe not for me. I'm probably too old for that. But I think there are a lot of people who might be interested in learn more about that.
Okay. Who needs to talk about AI or computer science competencies? Let's talk about space. So the Austrian Space Forum, every couple of years, they have a call for analog astronauts. And then we have internet and video. I'll show you the video for it. It's really nice. So because 2015, they had like a call for analog astronauts, and that my friend sent me, no? And I do VF because normally sometimes I have that in my presentation, but not today. And it was really nice. I saw the video then of it to show you. So this is the other woman. For analog astronauts, those are two. Okay. So here are you the right stuff. So I saw this video, and I was like, I need to do this. And it says the criteria. That's why I put it on. The light is not. This was in Morocco, the mission that was before. You have like 3 different layers you always have to put on. That's why it takes a bit longer. The epic music is the best always. And now here, those are the things that you have. Those are the criteria. So the criteria were capacity to tolerate boredom, and they actually tested us on that. We had over 600 tests, and one test was that they put us in the room, and they pretended that the experiment didn't work, and we were sitting there for an hour. And they had like video cameras, like seeing what everybody does. One took out the mobile. Boo. No, and other things were ability to function despite threats, strong interpersonal skills, humor, and perseverance. So those are the main criteria. So if there's the next call for analog astronauts, I'm happy to let you know. We're all growing older. And so I would be happy to forward that in case you're interested. And it's a super nice team. It's very international. We have for people from Portugal, Spain, Netherlands, Austria, Germany. It's, and then the whole team at the moment, we get supported by 150 scientists that do all the experiments, and then it's us 6 that have the amazing skill that we're allowed to then do it. So it's quite humbling to say that we're there, and then we're basically the eyes and the hands of all of the scientists that conduct the experiments. Yeah.
Thank you. There's a question from the online audience.
Yes, and the question is, if you ought to recommend only one AI tool for the academia, which one would it be?
If I would recommend one AI tool?
Yes.
I would recommend, I really like the teachable machine. I like that a lot because you see what data goes in, and then you can also download then the code afterwards, so you can kind of see really what happens if you're interested in programming. But also we did that with very small kids because at the end, I don't know, do you all know the teachable machine? Basically it's that you have a camera and you take pictures of things, let's say like pictures that I do one hand on the left and one on the right. And then I take pictures of the left hand, I take pictures of the right hand, and then it does its AI tricks. And then at the end, it always tells you the probability that you have the right or left hand in this use case. And what is really nice is that you see that if you kind of move differently, if you have something else in the back, that is like what increases or decreases the probability, and also to know that at the end you only have a probability for the outcome in machine learning or in AI. That is also a really important learning that they can take home, which we have with the large language models. No, I mean there's always the that they always, for every word there's calculated the probability that there's one word after the other. They're not knowledge models, no, they're language models and things like that. So you can explain a lot. And of course, for Open Roberta tool, I really like that as well, because in the Open Roberta lab, it's with drag and drop, and we have neural networks in there. And we do that also with elementary school kids already, that they understand what are neural networks, because otherwise it's just really a black box. No? And so also that is really nice to program your first neural network, basically.
Are there other questions? Yeah, Victoria?
Okay, I have my microphone in my hand. Okay, Carmen, thank you very much for this presentation. I was very interested in the last part when you were talking about the data and the current company where you work in. It's Aries, right?
Yes.
It's a correct pronunciation. So can you think of any interesting projects that could be interesting for students? Like what kind of data would the school students be interested in, and how feasible is it actually in school to work with the climate data? Because I mean the climate data, I can imagine you need a lot of resources to work with the climate data. So do you have any ideas? I don't know if you have any experience, but maybe ideas what could be interesting and appealing for the school students.
I think one thing is really nice if you do projects in general with schools for artificial intelligence, because then the students really notice that 90% of it is about the data. And then, only, I mean, well, depending on of course, how difficult it is, but they really notice this, that they need the data literacy in order to work with it. So with climate data, the challenge is that climate at the end is the average of 20 years of weather. So then you already can think that you need a lot of data. So the question is, why does it need to be climate data? Or you can also look at weather data, for example, and that would facilitate maybe the things, or ask what is the question, or you look at averages already that are already done, that are pre-processed for the climate data. And what is really nice about that is because obviously one of the biggest challenges of our times is climate change, so that you also have this educational factor about that. So you can educate them about climate change and then look at that average temperature, for example. Then for machine learning, I would maybe rather go for time series analysis, because they can see things easier and it's quicker to calculate. Because if you have to wait for 2 days to get your result, it's like, oh, this is cool, I want to be a data scientist. It's like, no. Yeah, but I'm happy to also go further into that with you. Yes, please.
What do you think is the most important element for motivating a student into topics like math and physics? That, like, for example, I ended up going into the humanities because I didn't think that I was any good at math. Now I'm going back to that and reassessing and like finding a love in math and computer science and stuff like that. So how would you, like, if you have someone who's 8-year-old or something like that, what do you think is the most important element for motivating them, like telling them, hey, it's not really that difficult, or you can do it?
Exactly what you were saying. Build confidence. Tell them that they can do it. And I think that, as you were saying now, you notice, oh, no, I can do it. No, because so many kids go up and they, oh, no, especially, I'm female, so obviously a lot of girls come and then, my parents said, like, only this is not for girls, no, like, and I have to wear pink. And so I think, like, really building the confidence is a huge part of it, and then igniting the curiosity and saying, okay, let's do it. And because I think the best way to build the confidence is do. And then once they've done something and done it correctly, then you have the self-enhancing, it's self-enhancing at the end, because they notice I can do it, and then they're not scared of it anymore. And once you reduce the entrance levels fear, then do it with curiosity that they want to continue. That is why also for the elementary school things we did with Code for Space, it was also that they were able, with the Open Roberta lab, they're able to write their first program in 1 minute, at least with drag and drop, and then the robot can drive, and then we're like, and now you programmed. So none of you can say anymore that you cannot program. And then like, oh, I can program, no? And then you can see how they're building the self-confidence, and then you have to see, okay, what is the topic are you curious about? And then kind of see, okay, we can program something on that topic like climate change, no? Or what are the different interests? And in every field at the moment you find something where you can apply mathematics, programming, find data. I think that is how I would go about.
Yeah, that's another question from the online audience.
Yes, the question is, how is it possible to keep up with all the developments in the fast-changing data and AI world when you're not a data scientist?
Yeah, I know, eh? I have so many newsletters. Good question. If you find a solution, let me know as well. I just social media and newsletters. I don't know if that's the nicest way, but yeah, that's how I do it, through social media. And you can have the top people in AI, and you kind of follow them, and then they will publish what they know. And then you have the nice newsletters, like once a week at least, where you can see the newest developments. And they're normally written in a not very technical style, so if you're interested then, I mean, I also have newsletters with all the papers and more technical ones, but you also have those that just have the overall things. Yes, and we had another question.
Yeah, I wondered if you could just talk a little bit more about the Code for Space program, what it actually looked like, what sort of problems the students were looking at. Yeah, I've never heard about something like that, so I think that's very cool.
Yeah, Code for Space. Actually, I had a friend that was a teacher in Australia who really wanted us to bring it there, and we're thinking about translating it. So Code for Space, we had the kickoff meeting the day before was the shutdown for Corona. So I think that was the biggest challenge for us, because then the school groups that could then build the experiments it was a huge effort. I think that's why also it was not as big as we hoped it to be, and we had a lot of people that were from Switzerland, because in Switzerland the groups were allowed to meet. So we had 80% of the experiments that were handed in were Swiss, and it was very cute because they sent them in videos where they explained what they did, and it was very nice. And for some of them, when we published it, we had to put undertitles. It was very cute. So what we did is that we had basically the call for experiments, that we have the Calliope Mini, and that we have to do that they have to think about different experiments that are feasible in space. And they first had to hand in their ideas, and then we picked out the best ideas, and then we said go, and then they could send also then the code for it. And that we did with the Open Roberta Lab. So they were programming in that. And once we're online, we can just go to the Code for Space page, because we had, it was together with the first female German astronaut. Hoppala. It's .org, eh? It's been a while. Here. So, so we developed an e-learning as well. So we have like online course, we have like different trainings, and then we have like the material, which unfortunately is not translated, so it's all in German. But so we have like, yeah, it's a bit older. So we have like the online course, and we kind of just explained like how can you get into coding. We gave like overviews about the space things, and then so with Victoria, we had students also then designing then for the teaching material. And we tried to do it also with the teaching material. We had, I think it was really, really nice, because you have also for real hours. So we had like, if in case you have a double hour, you can, for example, really follow the ISS, because it takes 90 minutes to go once around the Earth. And then if you have a double hour at class, you can follow the ISS once around the world for 90 minutes while you do other things. So we really have the different, I think you have like living on the ISS, no? And then we always we had what kind of what you needed. But the good thing is also you don't need the Calliope really. You can do everything in the simulation as well if you want to program. And then so everything was really described in a really good manner, I think. And yeah, you see here the different different informations, and learning cards where they could be printed out and handed out for with the solution on the one hand side and the problem on the other, so the kids could also do it themselves, things like that. Yeah. And we still do that, because people just love that. Pardon me? Yeah, it's only German, unfortunately, yeah. But we could do a code for space reloaded and can translate it.
Any other questions? Yeah?
Thank you for the very inspiring presentation. I'm interested in how the relations are built with the school teachers. So I would like to know, when you bring the projects to schools, what subject area teachers are you dealing with? If it's more on the STEM area, or if you also involve the humanities? And how is the relationship with the teachers when discussing the ethical part of it? Do they feel like they need to be brave to approach these topics? Are they welcoming of it? I'm interested in these aspects. Thank you.
Thank you. So all of that is from the Fraunhofer side, so Fraunhofer IIS. And so they have they have the Open Roberta Lab, it's called, and for that they have so-called Roberta teachers that teach the Open Roberta Lab and how you can program with that. And we have centers for that as well, and coding hubs. So there is already a huge amount of teachers involved. And of course, we do it also via social media. We have newsletter to reach more teachers, but there is already a large part is already involved. And then they approach us. For example, if we say for AI for vocational schools, you had at the top, you could ask for us to give workshops. And so we had requests to give workshops and come to the schools. So that worked really well. And then we did also online workshops where we could obviously handle more people at the same time, and then directly to get better feedback, as you were pointing out. I mean, if you work directly with the teachers, it's very, very different than if you do it frontally online. So I think that the teachers because as they approached us, I think they were very open. I think was quite interesting was for us when we had the classes, it was a lot harder to keep the teachers under control than the students. The students were all like that. The teachers got a bit nervous, but they thought that the ethical part was very interesting. We had like the moral machine. I don't know if you know moral machine. It's basically where you have to decide. You have a car that's out of control, and you have to decide who to kill. It doesn't sound very nice, but where the car should go. But that is something that we say that for the autonomous car driving, that is something that we have to program. That is something that we have to tell the algorithm what is more important, a life of a dog or a cat, to keep it simple. and that way they really get into the ethical aspects and really understand also the shortcomings in that term. And until now, we always had really positive feedback on all of that. I think the most important thing is also there to spark the curiosity and then reduce the fear by giving them confidence to tell you it's okay if you don't know the things. The students can teach you. You can watch online tutorials. There are a lot of different ways other than that the teachers have to be pressured to know everything and keep on the top level of AI at the moment, which I think that is totally out of the scope. And also I think if there are new programs, I think also for policymakers, it would be great if they could just be a bit more flexible about the things that are allowed nowadays, because in order for the kids to be prepared, I think a lot has to change quite quick. And for that, I think it would be great to have a bit of support from the policymakers as well.
So, if there's any other question for the moment, I would like to say thank you again, Carmen. It was really a nice, inspiring talk. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So now I would like to invite you all to grab a coffee and a snack and come back here at 3 p.m. for our panel discussion on AI and data literacy. So I hope you all had a nice coffee break, and I see that you already discussed many topics. That's wonderful. So now please welcome with me the moderator of today's panel discussion. At the German Informatics Society, she currently heads the Climate Data Entrepreneurial Club that Carmen also talked about, which gives young people access to climate data and promotes data literacy and AI skills in schools. She's also part of the Civic Data Lab team that empowers civil society by using data for the common good. Carolin, Henze, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, Maike, and welcome everyone to this panel on data literacy and AI in education. As you mentioned before, Maike, I don't think we need to convince each other that data literacy and AI is important and is a subject that needs to be taught in schools. But from what I understand and my experiences with the projects I work on, this is not really the case, at least in Germany. So I was at a workshop last week in Bochum, where we invited teachers from all over Germany and tested some teaching and training materials in the realm of data literacy and AI education. And some of the things I took away from them was that data literacy and AI education is not really part of the curricula, at least in Germany. So a lot of teachers are struggling to implement it in the classroom and find a fitting subject for it. Interdisciplinary learning is not yet really established. So it greatly depends on the teacher's individual engagement, how that is worked upon and how interdisciplinary these subjects are. And therefore, students' skills vary greatly in respect to data literacy and artificial intelligence, and also their confidence and self-efficacy. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into how we teach about data literacy and AI in schools, and what it looks like and what it should look like in the future with today's speakers that we invited, and I'm very excited to hear their ideas. But before we head into the discussion, we have a little input by llona Schrimpf. Llona is an environmental educator who is teaching about biodiversity and the way of life of native insects. Since 2020, she has been working on Kinsecta, an open source citizen project that focuses on AI-based recognition of insects. And this is not specifically a school project or exclusively, as I understand, but today we'd also like to broaden the view a little bit and see what we can learn from projects like Kinsecta or Code for Schools or other projects about teaching data literacy and AI education and how we can apply that in schools. So welcome, Llona.
Kinsecta started in 2020 as a science project with the goal of recognizing insects with AI. The project is an open source and a citizen science project. Citizen science means that anyone is able to participate by duplicating the sensor technology, collecting data, and co-developing the AI. We are a cooperative project between the University of Applied Science in Berlin, BHT, and the Listhof Environmental Education Center in Reutlingen, UBZ Listhof. Our work is divided into two distinct areas: Berlin, covering the field of sensor technology and AI, and Reutlingen, tackling the field of insects and education. At first, we in Reutlingen were the student, as Ms. Beckers and Mr. Hauser tried to give us a crash course on sensor technology, especially AI. We learned how to distinguish apples from pears using AI technology. But we were also able to return the favor, teaching them a little bit about insect diversity and insect mortality. We gradually came to realize how crucial it is for our future to give school children more insight into what actually lies behind the two letters AI. Thus, the mission of anchoring our project in schools was born. It is also relevant to mention that this was before the release of ChatGPT. We began 2021 with a teacher workshop at UBZ Listhof to see if there was interest in the school level. The aim was to link the subject of mathematics with AI, physics with sensor technology, and biology with the problem of insect extinction and the loss of biodiversity. We also wanted to let the students become co-researchers, so-called citizen science. The teachers present were very open to the idea, but it was clear that there was still a lot of work to be done. During the course of the project, we also had the opportunity to present at the ESD event in Nordrhein-Westfalen at the Nature and Environmental Protection Academy, NUA. When you read this sentence, you will surely understand why our project includes the aspect of education for sustainable development. We were previously able to earn the support of the Schiller School in Bochum, with whom we have since been working. What is particularly exciting is that the pupils there are developing their own groundwork on the subject of AI. At the moment, a group of pupils is building a sensor system as well as exploring the topic of hoverflies and would like to develop a project week for the primary level during the school year. We were also able to hold multiple discussions with teachers and students at the BMUV stand at Didacta 2023, where our project sparked a lot of interest. At educational events of UBZ Listhof, we saw how much fun pupils had collecting insects and helping with data collection using our sensor systems. We taught them the importance of data collection and help an AI learn. Students were able to distinguish a 7-point ladybug after 3 or 5 trials. AI, on the other hand, would have to analyze hundreds or thousands of pictures in order to correctly identify the species. Using a drawing tool developed by the students in Berlin for insect recognition, the children were able to familiarize themselves with what the decision-making process of an AI can look like. An event with trainees in the tech field showed once again that it is vital to increasingly address AI in the classroom. When I inquired about the background of AI and a primary object of the technology, I was not met with a single answer. It was not apparent to them that the data collection is the backbone of AI. And thus, the credibility of the data is crucial in developing an accurate program. After all, if I called every honeybee a ladybug, the system would later classify honeybees as a subspecies of beetle. AI is around us, accompanying us. It can help us or manipulate us. That is why it is vital to foster a better understanding of how it works and what is behind it. This instruction could be offered directly by schools or by other educational institutions. I believe that small projects such as Conjecta are well suited to conveying AI's significance as an innovation, but also its risks, to children and young people by making the topic accessible. Depending on the age group, this introduction can take place in a playful way, where students can be co-researchers without ignoring the concern that AI poses in our society. But with a joint collection of data aided by suitable sensor technology, AI can be a tool to get young people interested in insect mortality, another crisis we are currently facing and that Conjecta is actively confronting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ilona, for that very practical example, and I think we can take away a lot of insights from your project, and we'll also get a chance to dive a little bit deeper into the project itself with your colleague in the now following discussion. We have until 4 o'clock, and I'd like the audience and also the people online to save your questions for the end, please. We'll save about 10-15 minutes for the exchange and now head into the discussion. And first up, I'd like to welcome Polina Mosolova. Polina is a data scientist at SAP, developing machine learning and AI solutions for processes like sales, finance, and customer success. She obtained an industrial PhD, bringing together computational, social science, organizational trust theory, and productization of machine learning in the business context. And since then, you have been very passionate about using AI to solve complex business solutions and bring value to organizations. You're also interested in ethics and responsible AI development, and she has been recently elected to the ethics committee of Carolin, and she volunteers her time to support aspiring data scientists in mentoring programs. Welcome, Polina.
Thanks a lot. Happy to be here.
I'll sit down with you and then we can frame the rest of the speakers. My next guest is Professor Dr. Dirk Ifenthaler. Dirk holds the chair of Business Education, Technology-Based Instructional Design at the University of Mannheim, and he is UNESCO Deputy Chair on Data Science in Higher Education Learning and Teaching at Curtin University in Australia. His research focus combines questions of learning teaching research, educational technology, data analytics, organizational learning, and he's also Editor-in-Chief of Technology, Knowledge and Learning, and also Educational Technology and Society. Hi, Dirk.
Hi, welcome.
And then joining us for the Kinsecta project, we have Inge Beckers, or Professor Dr. Inge Beckers. She's an experimental physicist and professor of medical physics at the Berlin University of Applied Sciences in the field of optics, imaging, and image processing. She completed her doctorate in the field of semiconductor physics at the Philipps University of Marburg and worked as a postdoc at the Helmholtz Center of Materials and Energy in the field of correlating optical and electrical properties of materials for solar cell research. She is particularly interested in projects in which AI is used for more sustainability. Hi, Inge. And then our final speaker for today is Professor Dr. Tilman Michaeli. Tilman has headed the Computing Education Research Group at TU Munich since 2021. And after studying computer science at the FAU Erlangen to become a secondary school teacher, he taught and conducted research as a research assistant in computer science education in Erlangen, but also here in Berlin at the Freie Universität, where he completed his doctorate in 2020. And the aim of your work is not only to explain computer science, but to empower people and everyone to actively create and shape the digital world. Hi, Tilman. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me here. I'm very excited to dive into the discussion a little bit, and I want to start with you, Polina. You teach about data, you support aspiring data scientists, and I also found a quote from you, which I really like because it's very straightforward, where you say, "I'm Polina and I'm in love with data." And I would like to hear a little bit about the significance that data holds for you and why it is something you are not only learning about, but actively chose to teach about.
Is the mic on?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I think, yeah, data is my passion and my love, and maybe it's a bit nerdy. When I was a kid, I loved creating ratings, collecting data, like just invent what I collect, and yeah, it stuck, so now I'm a data scientist, and actually I think it's maybe, to me, this is the source of inspiration where you open a new data set and there is so much that you can find there, and it's just an entire world that you can open for you. And yeah, what I love seeing is how people get into that, and especially, I think, also maybe sometimes also school children who don't know how this world opens up, and then they just dive into it and look for some things that inspire them. So that's my motivation in it.
Thank you. And Inge, we just heard from your project Kinsecta, and you use AI in that as a tool for more environmental sustainability. Speaking from your experience, in what way can artificial intelligence and also teaching about data be a vehicle to teach other subjects, like, for example, about sustainability, but maybe also about ethical decision-making or the responsible use of technology? In what way can AI be used as a tool to teach other subjects?
Okay. First of all, as a side project of our project, we had a platform, we developed a platform where students can draw pictures which can be recognized. And especially if I do this with AI, we have trained, and which is not so good. So they always see, okay, it's not perfect. So we need good data to do this. And by learning this, it's very important to see how important data are, how important good data are, and this can be transformed to other subjects anyway, and yeah, this is what we do. And in this project also, we try to be very efficient concerning energy consumption, and because we want the IA to run on a mini computer, on a Raspberry Pi mini computer. So this is always something we have in mind and we like to talk about.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, I think, and we already started to discuss a little bit the significance of data literacy and AI education in this panel, but also obviously in the program before. Before we head any deeper, I'd like to spend a little bit of time on the terminology, because we, in preparation for this event, I spoke with a colleague, and they were asking me why data literacy and AI education are often used within the same context and even the same sentence, and how they are related, and if one is even possible without the other. And I'm hoping that, Tilman, you can attempt to sort this out for us. In what way data literacy and AI education are related? Is one possible without the other, or do you need them? Are they mutually dependent on each other, basically?
Typically, we would argue that data literacy is a much broader term in which we can have the AI literacy as a important part of data literacy. We obviously have a lot of other approaches of AI besides machine learning that are not so data relevant. So maybe it's not if we, as we computer scientists always like to think in Venn diagrams or stuff like that. It's not a perfect subgroup of data literacy, but a lot of that is part of data literacy. So especially if we are in the machine learning domain, it's really important to, we cannot do it without having an understanding of data and what can we learn from data, and how important is good data to have the respective results and so on.
Mm-hmm. And Inge, judging from or based on the project that you worked in, what was it that got people interested to work with you? Was it the topic itself, or was it using an AI and actually getting to analyze data? Were people very excited to handle large data set? What got people interested, and how did they join?
Actually, I had the feeling that most people who joined us in workshops and so on, they are interested in doing something meaningful with AI. This was the main driving force for them to come. Doing something against the decrease of insects, helping monitoring. I guess this was the main intention.
And Dirk, I saw you nodding when Inge said something meaningful. How does that translate into the school? Is that also what we're trying to do, to create meaning behind, when we teach about artificial intelligence and data literacy, create meaning behind it? And how is that approached? Do you have maybe a best practice or an example for that?
Oh yeah, there's lots of best practices in this sense, or examples. I think there's an aha moment whenever a teacher or an educator comes into a data set and realizes there's some meaning for pedagogical use in the data and can be translated directly into teaching or learning. That's also true for learners, of course. So whenever you engage with the dashboard, visualizing your learning process and identifying gaps in the learning process, for example, and suddenly you get something out of it in order to improve your own learning strategies, as one example again, that's the meaning which comes out of the data suddenly. But that needs to be translated. So from data to information is a long way. And we need to understand that this is one part of data literacy, but also of AI literacy, like Tilman said, that we need to understand how can we translate from whatever applications we use into our meaningful work or meaningful learning, meaningful applications and actions.
Mm-hmm. And now I saw you nodding. I love this discourse. Tilman, I know you recently worked on some recommendations for the K-12 computing education and what students should learn about artificial intelligence. Is that part of what you found? Can you elaborate a little bit more on the key concepts and key aspects that students need to learn, and if from data to meaning is one part of it?
Obviously, maybe like even the core of it. So what are we using AI for? And that I mean, like in general, that's kind of the challenge in the context of what should K-12 students be prepared with. What are those things that we consider to be like general knowledge, Allgemeinbildung, to use the German term, where those very abstract, very foundational ideas are the important things we want to prepare students with for their lives, in contrast to any technological details and stuff like that. So that's really the core of it. It's a very high-level, abstract idea of how we, like technology or like computer science works and how it influences or might influence our lives, because that's what's happening and what is so important that we like have this perspective, this understanding.
Does that also resonate with you, Polina, from your experience in the industry? You work as a data scientist, you work a lot with other data scientists. What is it, according to you, that's like people really need to learn and to understand about data and about artificial intelligence? What needs to be taught in schools where you say, they are kind of ready for a career in data scientist or to explore that further?
Yes, I think there is this side of like preparing students to get into the data science career, but what also we cannot forget is that everybody also is going to use the outputs that data scientists create, the AI tools that are actually everywhere in the industry, they're everywhere on social media, as we heard before, so they're already around the students, so we cannot just say it's for the computer science children and then everybody else gets less. I think we actually need to start with learning about using the tools and what can happen, and then people would dive in and get more interested. So I think that's a side that is actually very important.
Maybe if I can just add upon that once more from this K-12 perspective. So we typically, like in general in computing education or informatics, the subject, we try to look at those things from three different perspectives. So on the one hand, we call it technological perspective. How does it work? What's the underlying computer science foundation models? How does it work? But also, equally important, like from a societal perspective, like what are the implications of this technology on individuals in society, but also how do we as a society like influence the technology, or the third perspective, how do you use those tools in a like responsible manner? So those three perspectives, we call that the Dachstuhl triangle, is something we really emphasize for not just AI or data literacy, but like every computing content we consider important in K-12 education.
Yeah, thank you very much. What I'm wondering, what I took away also from the workshop is that we have right now a lot of different skill levels in school. And teachers are struggling to implement it into curriculums. Just because we don't have it's not in a dedicated curricula and therefore not easily implemented in schools. I don't know, Inge, if you also had an experience, I think Ilona hinted towards it, that you had to deal with different skill levels in your project. So it was very interdisciplinary and everyone came with a little bit of different prior experiences. And can you explain a little bit more how you tackled that? I don't know if that was the case in schools as well, or just within your team, but how did you?
Actually, this was a big issue. Additionally, because it was so interdisciplinary, So everybody was sometimes a student and everybody was sometimes a teacher. And this is also the experience we make with our citizen scientists. They are experts in one way and they also learn in other ways. Okay, but how did we deal with this? We always try to start very simple and and try to build teams so that one can help the other. So we also have somebody always had to solder. So this, and somebody has to do the coding, and somebody has to have the skills in the biological part. So this was one thing. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
May I heat up a little bit the discussion now? We find in literature and research recently published that not every teacher needs to be an expert in data literacy. No teacher needs to be an expert in AI, and no teacher needs to be a data scientist either. So what is this thing a teacher needs to be in our data-driven and AI-driven world? I think this question is too short. We have to go and step a little bit back and think about what is the mindset of our educators towards AI, towards data literacy, and build an understanding that this is, of course, part of our society, and this will not go away anymore. And then start from this concept of general education, Allgemeinbildung, and really understand that this mindset is a growth mindset of teachers and educators, and even also our students, of course, and seeing that, that we grow into this data-driven and AI-driven society, and grow as a society with these tools and with these applications being built by data scientists and computer scientists, which embrace us every day in our daily lives. But this mindset needs to move towards that end, that you, as a teacher, not stand into a classroom and say, well, I don't use it and I don't want to have any contact with it. And this is what we see very often as I'm involved in teacher education, when we go into workshops with teachers and a first step. So the spectrum between a novice and an expert within data literacy and AI literacy is quite wide, and we should accept that spectrum and not expecting that everybody will be an expert within the next 1 or 2 or 3 years, but we need to build support systems for all our teachers on the spectrum to help them to implement AI and data into the classrooms and help the students to grow towards, well, our tomorrow's society.
Okay. No? Okay. What I wanted to add it is if we have an issue which is bigger, so and we have to keep the group to be responsible for reaching the goal. I guess this is the most. This is the most important. I guess this is the most important thing, to get people to go together and to start with everybody at the place they are.
Mm-hmm. Maybe like to add on, in particular to what Dirk said, I think it's like we need to identify what are our target groups, and they are different. So on the one hand, we have like computing teachers, informatics teachers, and they will be the stuff they're teaching. We're doing professional development for Bavarian teachers now for quite some time, because it's there in the mandatory curriculum in schools, and they still not the expert on the data scientists, but as for every other computing topic they are teaching in their classroom, they need a certain level of expertise. Besides that, we have this perspective of using AI in the sense of, or data in the sense of like more like learning analytics, where we have a foundational understanding for every teacher, what's going on, what's the potential, what do I need to take care of, how can I use it in my particular classroom. And we have a third perspective, because as we, I think, saw today in a lot of those examples, it's not just a development in computer science, but in science. So how we do science is changing. We're talking about simulations as the third pillar, and data science, or like using data to answer research questions, as the fourth pillar of science. So every scientific discipline, not just natural sciences, but like also digital humanities is the term we use there, are changing, and teachers need a certain understanding of what's going on in their scientific discipline that informs their school subject, and how the content that is in their school subject, the methods that are used within their school subject, and the tools. And that's like just those three, and there might be more different like target group or perspectives to look at AI in school education, for which we have a very different kind of area of expertise or level of expertise, competencies we need to like prepare teachers for.
Yeah, and I think the target group concept is something that is very helpful for data scientists to know too, because we have data scientists as like a closed community speaking about technical things a lot of times, but what we sometimes need to emphasize more is there is a target audience, people who would develop ethics concepts for this, people who will read this and make decisions based on the things we do. So I think exposing us all to more target groups in this world is actually a very helpful concept to also prepare children for the real world in a way, because I was on a train yesterday and I heard a podcast about large language models in learning, so in schools, and there was a very nice statement there that we cannot actually like isolate kids and then they grow up and then, well, now you can use AI. It's impossible. So they have to know how the real world AI applications are also developed, and I think that would be really helpful to show them the roles and the positions in the world that exist.
Maybe to add to this, that means that we have different data and AI literacies for different stakeholder groups, right? So the students would need data literacy and AI literacy on the one side, which builds on different dimensions than a teacher's AI literacy or data literacy, or even a policymaker's data literacy, right? But everybody needs to build these towards these literacies, but on different levels and on different scales.
Yeah. From what I'm hearing, like I think you both mentioned that it needs a little bit of a perspective shift, or we need to get the teachers involved. We need to understand that this is a dynamic field and we shouldn't be afraid of it. Do you have any recommendations of how to address teachers and maybe take a little bit away the fear of not being the expert immediately, and then yeah, how to implement it in a subject that they're teaching? Does it need a bigger system change, or is it more formats that we need that directly address these maybe concerns?
So that's something we're doing, like besides doing professional development for computer science teachers, that as AI wasn't the typical content of studying computer science for until maybe a few years ago, we need to also build their knowledge, but they're very interested, also very different level of expertise they bring to the table, but nevertheless they're very interested. We're also doing a lot of professional development for teachers from different subjects, which might have a lot more of maybe like, can I do that? And the same discussion we had after the keynote today. And I think what works there to also get it in the classroom is have those best practices, those examples that really work and closely connect to the stuff they're doing in their classroom, that they can try out. We have a low barrier, low threshold. We have like some, and they can try out and see, oh, it's not that complicated. It's not rocket science to use some of this.
Mm-hmm. And you also don't need to be an expert in AI to go into, or to work together with the students with ChatGPT, for example. Yeah, you can start to have a question, you have a problem, and the students answer it, and they use ChatGPT also, and then they have to evaluate: is this true? How can I check if it's true? So this is a process. They can do it together. So it's a social learning, and I guess teachers and students are learning at the same time. It's great.
So what we found, I look into Australia now, what we found in an Australian research project in schools is that teachers are looking for clear support systems within the schools, which are safe on the one side, which have, of course, data protection, security aspects involved, but also looking for regulations which also help them in order to use or not use systems which might be questionable, which might have data issues, etc., etc. So really building support systems on the one side and building regulations which are supporting the teachers in their daily work is something which everybody basically demanded within that focus groups we've been researching. And I think this is where we are just at the moment, at the beginning, to create those guidelines, create those support systems, and really bringing that into schools and bringing it into life, into a school development, because it's not the individual teacher, it's the school as an organization which needs to develop further as a learning organization moving forward and looking into all these regulations and systems which can be adopted then within the individual schools and for the individual teachers in the end.
Maybe one more thing to add for the taking fear away from the teachers. I think sometimes it helps to develop scenarios, so not just say, use ChatGPT and then they're open with it and they don't know where to start and they feel like they need to be an expert in the technology. Maybe sometimes scenarios are helpful to show them you can use it like this, and then it is a guiding principle, and then with the regulations attached, it would be, I think, amazing to see it.
And I think in general, we have to just embrace that we're in the Marco Polo phase. We're still figuring things out, whether in various domains, how to include this technology. And that is kind of coming back to this, is it a bigger system, whatever. That's, I think, a mindset we need, that we, on the one hand, need to try things out and be very critical, whether we just, now I can do this thing also with ChatGPT, but is it actually do we see a clear goal why we should use this technology at this or this tool, especially when we're on this tool level of discussion? What do we expect from the usage there? And also closely work together with research, because we need those scientific evidence we don't have yet for a lot of those use cases in K-12 education. That's something we just, I think, that would be one thing to embrace, kind of that's where we are. Yeah, currently. Mm-hmm.
If we talk about collaboration with research, Polina, do you also see opportunity coming from a more industry perspective for industry partnerships to kind of maybe make a triad of system change, research, and industry? Where do you see the role lie there, maybe?
So I think there are already existing industry collaborations, and I'm here as a private person, not as an employee, but SAP does have collaborations, university alliances, for example, where, of course, the industry also wants to support it. I think on one of the projects today, there was a sponsorship from Google, so there are a lot of big companies that want to support with resources, and I think there is a huge potential there for collaboration.
But then I think it also in the discussion today, it was already mentioned, or I think maybe one question from the chat, that considering the rapid pace of technological advancements, how do we keep up and how do we keep our guidelines and recommendations and learning materials relevant? Dirk, do you have, is there something that we can do to ensure that our materials that we develop now are not outdated in 1 or 2 years?
Using AI? Well, no. First of all, I would promote open education resources where everybody can be involved and everybody can, develop materials further. So I think that is still another mindset, I think, where we can grow with and create open communities for sharing pedagogical materials and also approaches. And with that said, when technology is on a fast pace, didactics and pedagogy is always kind of lagging behind. And that's something where we can only create communities of practice and support this development, and not asking every single teacher to go back home and sit on his desk, on her desk, and create some materials for next lessons after GPT-4 is released. So that makes no sense. But really creating international multidisciplinary communities of practice will help, and clearly also it's demonstrated in research, help to overcome these issues and really bring us on a fast track towards these materials needed in the classroom.
I would also argue it's about awareness that that's happening. So we see a lot of resources where people publish or think it's important to prepare students for good prompting. That's knowledge that's outdated in 2 weeks. So that's like within K-12 education, we aim for preparing students for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So that's something we should talk about and explore and so on, but not the thing we should prepare them with for their lives. So we should be aware, that's maybe more precise, we should be aware that's not what we are preparing them for. Within computing education, we general have kind of this problem that computer science is a highly dynamic field with a lot of new developments, and we have certain concepts to cope with this problem. So we try to focus on concept knowledge, on foundational ideas and principles, like how can a machine learn? Those ideas are from the 60s. That's like from the beginning of computer science. And if we focus on those abstract ideas, that will, even in 20, 30 years, probably, or we're very convinced of that, allow me to, for example, understand a certain phenomenon in my daily life, because I don't need to know about neural networks or about whatever, but just the general idea how this works. That's what we try to focus on, and to be aware what is this concept knowledge, this foundational stuff that we are very convinced of will not change, and what are those things that will change. I think that's really important in this domain.
I think one other aspect is also critical thinking, because we don't know how trustworthy are certain technologies, and we want to prepare kids to be able to evaluate them in the first place, not blindly take something and trust it, but actually to have the skills to know when do I trust and how do I do the fact checking. And I think that is relevant now more than ever, and probably will stay even more relevant with every new technology coming out.
And another approach is that we change the kind we do teaching, so that we use flipped chart classrooms, so students can prepare at home and we discuss mainly in class. So this is another approach to use AI at home, for example, so that there are 2 teachers, one at class and one at home, and at class it can be discussed and evaluated together.
Mm-hmm. I imagine it's quite the challenge when you write recommendations to decide what will be relevant in 20 years and what won't be relevant or will be outdated in 2 weeks. Can you explain a little bit the process or the what research lies behind it to say this will be relevant and this might not?
That's just as always with it's particular educational standards, something we're very normative where we cannot say with because how old is the iPhone? So, and how did it change our daily lives? That's something we cannot look forward. But we look at, in general education, we have this perspective on things as for a lot of other developments in computer science, we see there's a foundational core. How can a machine learn? If you talk about, for example, supervised learning, the idea that we provide examples and there are clever algorithms that find patterns in those examples, then can be used to classify new data. That's a very abstract idea. Doesn't really matter. I don't need to know. I wouldn't consider general education to know about neural networks and how they work, or decision trees, or whatever you want to use. But this very high-level idea, that's what we're aiming for and try to identify. And the test of time is one of the typical criteria we use to have a look at those things. So what are those abstract things that also have a very close connection to those phenomena we see?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I think I imagine that's quite the challenge. Before we run out of time here, I'd like to open the floor also to audience questions. Yes, please feel free also in the chat and here in the room to ask your questions if you have any. I see one here and one in the back, and one here as well. Okay.
Me first. Okay. How do you feel about the use of storytelling to promote or to educate people in precisely this topic? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I can relate to this if you like, and maybe you also. So it's a quite an interesting concept, which has been also developed earlier in the constructivist era of education. That's 1990s, end of 1980s. So there's research which created a concept called goal-based scenarios, which is like storytelling. So you have a mission and you have some goals where you follow as a student and get support by your teachers, and that involves a whole scenario of challenges and which are related to authentic situations in real life. So you bring the real life into classroom and then challenge the students throughout their own problem-solving processes, and that's kind of like a story being told, and as an approach like storytelling, really getting into a role of a stakeholder and understanding different perspectives if you switch roles, for example. So that's a very meaningful approach which combines lots of different elements of pedagogical methods and helping to create not only critical thinking but also understanding underlying principles of not only AI and data literacy, but whatever subject is being taught. So it's a very powerful approach because it also creates interest, like from a psychological point of view, motivation and emotional dispositions are very important in order to support learning. So that's also one aspect which storytelling puts into the foreground. So all these dispositions we naturally create within authentic situations. So yeah, I can only resonate to a positive response to this.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question? So that's pretty interesting. Actually, first I'd like to ask if you can repeat the name of the concept so that I can research it later.
Oh yeah, it's goal-based scenarios.
Goal-based scenarios.
Goal-based scenarios, and the original author is Roger Schenck.
Okay, perfect.
From the US.
And so my follow-up question is, what you were explaining is like, as you said, like storytelling, but based on real scenarios, right? So now I find even more interesting to ask, how do you feel about that same concept of teaching these topics through storytelling, but through fictional storytelling? So not through real life scenarios, but through scenarios that mimic things that could be real, but are through fictional things like, I don't know, maybe a medieval story or futuristic story.
Yeah, absolutely. So this concept is open towards that end as well. So the original idea was really bringing authenticity into the classroom. That's why the authentic concepts have been in the foreground. But if I'm talking about motivation and emotions, interest created through these fictional stories, for example, that's a different approach, and it works the same way. So the methodological approach from pedagogy is the same. But with another, kind of content view. So yeah, I would agree that both work if laid out well.
Thank you.
But of course, the fictional approaches, but also the authentic approaches, need to have a critical reflection on outcomes, on processes, within the learning process. It's always important to have like these debriefing aspects within these approaches. So you just reflect and critically respond towards different solutions.
Thank you.
Maybe in the meantime we can take the question from the online question.
Yeah, we actually have a couple of questions. We already briefly touched on the topic of ChatGPT, and one person asks, should teacher know anything about generative AI when using it, like ChatGPT? So specifically for teaching purposes, as a tool to prepare lessons, or is it a tool that is so intuitive that it's not necessary to educate on generative AI? And a follow-up question for that would be, are there already empirical studies done with teachers on and generative AI? And it's addressed to Professor Ifenthaler.
You wanted to start?
Or anyone who
I can start,
feels...
I would consider it very important, as with every like tool or technology or whatever we're using, that we have an understanding. It's not about that it's intuitive to use, that it is, but I think we heard a lot about that it's important to understand, have this critical thinking, and for that we would consider it like essential to have a understanding, not on an expert level, but a foundational understanding how large language models, which would be the concept, work. And that also allows us to like explain things we then see when working with those models, because we know what's the idea behind it, have an like idea of the potential and limitations and of this criticality. And for that, it's essential to have a core or basic understanding of how large language models, or in general, like AI works.
And yeah, the reference to empirical studies, I can say yes, there are of course empirical studies looking into generative AI, especially also ChatGPT and other local LLMs, looking mainly at perceptions at the moment. So how do teachers or students perceive the use of these generative AI models within learning processes within the classroom, for preparing the lessons, for creating tasks. So there's lots of perception-oriented and focused studies, but what we miss at the moment is really empirical evidence towards changes in learning process, learning success. And very much importantly, there's not much empirical studies in a longitudinal perspective. So because the models have been evolved just now, so we don't have like long-term effects being reflected in these studies. So we are working, of course, as researchers on these studies at the moment. For example, looking into what are cognitive processes being influenced, what is creativity, critical thinking being influenced by generative AI models. We are looking into the writing processes being influenced by generative AI models, and I could name a lot. So there's a growing body of literature providing evidence currently.
Maybe one just very small point to add on this discussion, particularly it very much reminds, as a lot of this AI discussion does, to discussions we had maybe 20 years ago when we talked about like using media, and we have the same challenges, and we very often saw like now we use media and just like transfer the thing we previously did in an analog way. Now we have a tool for that, and that's not where we want to go at. And I think that's very important to consider in this discussion, and also in this discussion on like empiric studies on that we have this perspective in mind. That's where we want to go. We want to like use the potential the tool, technology, whatever is offering to us, and not just like transfer something we previously did without AI and now do it with AI.
And there's a very interesting paper about about AlphaGo. It came out, it was published 2022, and it investigated how the supercomputer who won and was better than the champion up to now, how it changed the kind of making moves from so on for every other Go player. And it was very interesting to see that especially the novelty of the decisions they made have been increased a lot. So we can learn from AI a lot, and we have to reflect this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we can also use a lot of industrial studies that are happening, like, for example, studies on creativity that investigate if ChatGPT actually enforces it or lowers the level of creativity depth that we can get. So I think that also can be sometimes applicable to projects in schools, of course, not directly, but we can also use a lot of research that is outside of the school environments and educational environments. There is a question in the back, I see.
Yeah, I'd like to take two more questions. I think the mic is here with Daniel, and then the question in the back, and then I think we're unfortunately running out of time.
Thank you. I actually had two questions. Maybe I just pose one. I just want to widen the scope a little. We also had kind of the political perspective or the political sphere in mind with the project. So the question would be, we as GI, the German Informatics Society, just published recommendations that every teacher during their training should learn some computer science competencies. Do you agree with that? What could or should that be? Or do you say, no, actually maybe they do it through learning, so should it be implemented in the curriculum with of teacher training in universities?
maybe in short, yes, it should.
Yes.
And it's really important. And once more, we have to consider everything we like have in the first phase of teacher education. So while they are at university, until those teachers are in schools and we have an actual change in practice. So that's not enough. That's one very important thing where we need, for more reasons than just AI, core foundational computer science for everyone, which is also a consequence of not having the mandatory subject, because with that it would be reduced a lot what we need to like do there. But we also have to think about the second and third phase, so actual teachers and offering professional development, because if we just start with the newest generation, it will take us way too long time to like actually have this change in practice we consider important. And I think also the teachers themselves consider important.
And then I think we have the last question over there.
Thank you. My question is coming from the key point you mentioned, communities of practice. Because as I see it, like the most restricted resources of teachers is time. How do you motivate people that have like no time and are stressed out to participate in communities and to share knowledge and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's a very important question. And I think when we discuss all these topics related to data and AI, we need to think about well-being, human well-being and social well-being. And that includes, of course, also the time and the pressure put on teachers in order to improve their own learning and teaching and moving forward as a AI competent teacher. But on the other side, the well-being is very important, and so a balance between well-being and this responsibility towards your own health, and also as a school, as an organization, being responsible for the well-being and the health of the teachers, but also of the students, is something we often forget in our conversations, and this needs to be also into the foreground.
I guess time is an investment at the beginning, but in the end, there are so many tools teachers get help, creating tests, making the solution at the same time, and probably finding grades, and so it's just an investment at the beginning.
Thank you very much to the four of you, and thank you also to the audience for participating in this discussion. We have some time now, I think, with the poster session, where we can have these in-depth conversations and maybe elaborate on a few points. And yeah, thank you so much, and I'll give it up to my colleague, Maike.
Yeah, thank you very much for this interesting discussions, dear panelists, dear Carolin, and thanks again for your questions to the audience online and on site. So yeah, as you already mentioned, Carolin, there will be the poster session right now and the opportunity of drinking much coffee and eating much cake and fruits. So I would like to invite you to do so, because we got 18 wonderful poster submissions from all of you, and please engage in discussions and go see the posters and drink coffee, eat cake. Unfortunately though, this is only taking place on site, so dear online participants, I hope you enjoy your break anyway, and hope to see you soon here at 5 p.m. for the Policy Dialogue workshop. So, welcome back everyone. I hope you had a wonderful break and you enjoyed nice discussions in front of the posters. So I guess we will have time after the policy workshop to have another discussion round in front of the posters. So now I would like to welcome on stage the person responsible for research, innovation and projects at the Austrian Computer Society. Welcome, Martin Kandlhofer.
Thanks a lot. I hope the mic is working. So, now we come to the funny part of the afternoon, and maybe also the the part where we are interested in your feedback and your ideas. So perfectly timing, I would say. What are we going to do in this couple of 1.5 hours? It's the policy workshop of the TrainDL Summit. Well, to give you a short overview, I want to talk about the policy cluster work packages of this project. And in particular, there are two main outcomes. One is the TrainDL Policy Monitor. So it's an online tool visualizing the different policies in AI and data literacy education. And I want to also give you a short insight into the methods and into the functionality of this policy monitor. The second big outcome are policy recommendations, which we formulated part of this project. And in particular, here I also want to give you a short insight into the process. How did we came up with this policy recommendations? And also what were the challenges, or what are the challenges in formulating policy recommendations. And then the main part of this workshop is, of course, the workshop, and it's a knowledge cafe. We prepared 4 topics, which you will discuss in 4 groups. And we have 2 variants, of course, of this workshop, of this cafe. One here, face-to-face in Berlin, and there is also an online variant for our online participants. Here's the camera. Okay, and then we conclude this afternoon with a short wrap-up session where each table presents their results. All right, so maybe to give you a short context of the whole TrainDL project, most of you, or probably a few of you, are familiar with the whole project in itself. So basically the project was an iterative process with more cycles, with different target groups. And basically we started with, here a laser pointer. We started with a policy building process where we invited stakeholders and other policy makers and also representatives from research, education and teachers to gather ideas, to gather feedback, to have a starting point more or less. The next cycle were interventions, so these were workshops with teachers, and you will see and hear and experience more about this intervention tomorrow. So we did these interventions, or the colleagues did the interventions, and those interventions were also qualitatively and quantitatively evaluated to gather data in order to really base our recommendations on solid evidence. And what I talk about today is the outcome. It's called the policy report, consisting of the policy monitor and the policy recommendations. Yeah, let's start with the policy monitor. Short introduction. The main goal, or the overall goal of this monitor, was to first investigate various different policy documents, focusing specifically on artificial intelligence and data literacy topics, and also focusing on education and teacher training or teacher education. And to summarize and visualize those findings in an interactive tool. Of course, there were lots of challenges and hurdles we discovered. First of all is, how do we identify those policies? Where can we find those policies? Policy documents sometimes are quite publicly available on the websites. Sometimes they are just documents which are not publicly available. So the next thing when we found out how to identify these policies is how to review those policies, how to evaluate or assess these policies in an objective manner. And it's also, as we found out, very time-consuming to first evaluate these policies and then also to keep this monitor up to date. This is also a little bridge to the workshop afterwards. Maybe you have better ideas than we came up with. Regarding the identifying of policies, of course, we did a classical desk research. We searched on the websites of ministries, of other educational institutions and so on. Then we did, as part of the project, different stakeholder and policy building workshops, starting with 3 national policy building workshops in our countries, in the project countries, Germany, Lithuania, and Austria, and then also joint international policy workshops with representatives from all over Europe. And we also did an online survey contacting the policymakers directly and asking them which policies are you working on, which could be interesting for our project. And the current status, as it is presented today, we have 77 policies from 22 countries in the mostly European Union, and we also have policy documents which are European Union-wide, but also some globally. But this is not a process where you can say, yeah, now we have completed it. It's a more or less ongoing process with new policies popping up every month or so. So it's really hard to keep it up to date. Okay, in order to objectively compare different policies and also to evaluate and assess these policies, we have to come up with some compare system, as we call it. Yeah, it looks like this, and I hope it's readable also in the last rows here. A compare system consists of various different objective parameters which can be then evaluated by the experts who really take a look into the policies. And those parameters are the issuer, the target audience of the policy, then is the policy mandatory or not, which type of policy do we look at, the issuing year, of course, and then here the content parts of the policy. So does the policy deal with data literacy aspects? Does the policy deal with artificial intelligence aspects? And more later on about those 6 definitions here to say. First of all, just a short explanation what is meant with target audience. So the policy addresses different target audiences, and we identified here 4 main audiences as stated here. Regarding the type, so policy documents vary in their type, from high-level strategies or action plans up to concrete implementation suggestions like curricula and so on. And we fixed those 8 types and evaluated the policies according to those types. Then the content parts or the content parameters of each policy. So for data literacy education, we were inspired or took the definition of the EU DigComp framework, so to have a more fine-grained definition of the term data literacy education. And in particular, we focused or we investigated whether the policy deals with browsing, searching, filtering data, evaluating data, information and digital content, and managing data, information and digital content. Terms of artificial intelligence, AI literacy aspects, we based these parameters on the already mentioned from Tilman in the panel, the Dachstuhl-Dreieck or Dachstuhl-Triangle. So we took a look at whether the policy deals with technical aspects, with social aspects, ethical aspects, or application-related aspects. And a 3-state evaluation or evaluation system was chosen, allowing the human assessor, evaluator to quantify how much each policy addresses those topics, from 1 not addressed to 3 fully addressed. And of course we could have gone from 1 to 10 or something like this to do it more a fine-grained evaluation, but that is not really applicable or practical. So we came up with this 3-state. Yeah, and all those results from this evaluation and review of policies resulted in an interactive policy monitor. You can access this monitor also on your smartphone following this link. Of course, it looks a little bit better if you use a computer. And maybe I can just give you a short tour during my presentation here. And I hope this works. No, I don't want to. Ah, here it is. It's really hard to find this mouse cursor here. So when you enter this website, you can see first of all an explanation what the policy monitor is all about, and also that it was developed during the TrainDL project. And here, then when you scroll down, it's the main part. And for each section, so you also have a description. So more or less this tool is self-explanatory, but anyway, I also give you a short tour here. So you have, first of all, this interactive literacy map where you can select a country, and for your effect, it's not really working. Basically, you can select here a country. Maybe we don't have internet connection. Or when you select a country here, but it's not working now. I don't know why. Yeah, it's working on the smartphone, I guess, but not right now. So you can select a country, and then you see policies of this country dealing with data literacy or AI education, and here on the second section you see the average of all those policies which deal with those topics. And you can scroll down, and then you see the target audience which are addressed by those policies of those country you select. And then there is the detailed section, so you can see here all those different policies which are relevant for the country, and you can select one policy and you see the policy details only for this document. So for instance, when I have selected here the National Audiovisual Institute policy, educators for young people, from the Austrian Federal Ministry, for instance, you can see here the detail which is just relevant for this selected policy. And the last section of this online policy monitor provides you a list with all the policies there, and you also have the option of exporting these policies to an Excel sheet, for instance. So you're very welcome to give it a try on your own device, and also some of the questions we prepared for the workshop are dealing with this tool here. All right, so then I move on to the next outcome, the policy recommendations. So we started this process in the beginning of the project, and the policy recommendations were formed through the stakeholder involvement, through target group interventions, as I already mentioned, the quantitative and qualitative evaluations, and also the analysis of the relevant policy documents. And of course, this was also an iterative process with 3 rounds of interventions with STEAM, CS, and primary teachers, evaluations, and the first draft recommendations were reviewed by experts and then adapted. So this leads to this final set of policy recommendations. And your feedback today, of course, will also be incorporated into the final set, which will then be published also on the website. So the process of this formulating the recommendations, visually represented once again, so maybe it's easier to understand. We started 2021 with the policy dialogues in Austria, Germany and Lithuania. These were basically workshops with the policy builders and stakeholders there. Then we did also the desk research, as I already mentioned, then followed by an international policy workshop where we did it online with participants from all over Europe. Then there happened the first round of interventions, which were basically workshops for computer science teachers, and those were also evaluated, gathering qualitative and quantitative feedback, which then resulted in a first set of draft recommendations for computer science. These draft recommendations were then also reviewed, adapted accordingly, and then the next round started, the second and third round of interventions. In that case, we did, or the partners did also the interventions with STEAM teachers, but also primary teachers. Again, those were evaluated, and also in parallel, we extended our task research to other European countries, but also worldwide. And the final result were the recommendations for STEAM, primary and computer science. Again, you already know it, reviewed by experts, by the advisory board, adapted, and accordingly set up for this final summit today. Good. This is just text from the same thing here visually and here in text form. The final set, or the set of policy documentations as we have it today, you can also find it here under this link. Is basically we adapted the format so that it's a more high-level policy document and not going into detail how to actually implement it on a school level, for instance. And yeah, it turned out that in these policy recommendations there are lots of overlapping topics which are relevant for all of our three target groups, for primary, STEAM and computer science. And also this was also part of several expert reviews of the recommendations. Of course, we always speak of data literacy and artificial intelligence because this is the focus of this project. This is the focus also of the recommendations. But nevertheless, as we already heard today in the panel, artificial intelligence, data literacy, they are just part of informatics or computer science, of this large part. Yeah, we structured the recommendations along the 6 main topics. Recommendation 1 is focus and methods. Recommendation 2 deals with teacher training for in-service teachers. Recommendation 3 deals with education for pre-service teachers. 4 with framework curricula. 5 with the certification and infrastructure at schools. And number 6, which is mostly relevant for the primary school level, is the involvement of parents. And maybe this is too much to read now and also a little bit small, but you can see here that we have policy recommendation 1, the focus and method, comprises various different main points. So for instance, it's important to provide ready-to-use material which was developed and tested by qualified experts. So it's important to provide those materials to the teachers so that it's really accepted and used. So then there's also regarding setting up a connection between AI and data literacy and the subjects of the teachers to make the relevance really visible. Raising awareness is an important topic. Also highlighting potential benefits, not only to integrate those topics into the teaching lectures or the lessons, but also to highlight the benefits for using those AI for different administrative tasks, for instance. Nevertheless, also to highlight the potential risks, but also the opportunities, and of course the ethical aspects. And talking about cybersecurity and data protection is also part of data literacy and AI, of course, nowadays. Yeah, and the methods and tools which should be provided, and also the teaching materials, should be based on a constructionist approach, so focusing the hands-on approach, learning by doing. For the primary part, or for the primary recommendation, we also included the word a playful approach. So really to take the fear of the teachers and also to lower the barrier, the entry barrier. For computer science teacher also there is a recommendation that self-assessment tests could be helpful, so that teachers get an idea what they actually know about artificial intelligence, or where there is some lack of knowledge which they can address. Okay, moving on a little bit faster. Recommendation 2 deals with teacher training formats for in-service teachers. So here it's important to mention that different formats should be combined. So it should be a combination of online formats to get some basic knowledge, but also, of course, the face-to-face workshop or trainings are of essential importance. Course structure is also one recommendation. So each course, each training should have clearly defined goals, what the teachers really learn in this training, and also include feedback mechanisms into the teacher training programs. It's essential. Yeah, recommendation 3 is basically a no-brainer. Yeah, those topics should also be included into the education of pre-service teachers at university or university colleges for teacher education. Policy recommendation 4 is, as we found out during the interviews with the teachers, it's, but we already know about it, the curriculum or the framework curricula are mostly quite packed, overfilled, and here it's important to take this issue into consideration. So by overfilling the curriculum, not to take the interest of teachers and also school students from the topic away by just packing it ever more into the curricula. Certification and infrastructure could also be an important point. So it could be a possibility to provide some qualification or certification of schools or teachers in form of a badge or a certificate showing that those teachers or schools have undergone some basic training in those topics. And yeah, also not to forget about the infrastructure. So not all of the schools, but many schools, of course, face the challenge not to have enough computers, for instance. So this technical infrastructural aspect should be taken into account as well. And as you can discover tomorrow during the practical trying out of the learning materials, lots of those materials are unplugged, paper and pencil. And last but not least, the involvement of parents should also be taken into account, especially for the target group of primary education. Okay, so it took me longer than expected, but nevertheless, we start now with the World Café, or the TrainDL Café as I call it. We have 4 tables, 4 topics. Each table is moderated by one of our experts, and you can distribute as you like, but please take care that the distribution is more or less equally, otherwise I will take care. And here it's important, each table has a certain topic and also guiding questions, so please get your ideas. It's some kind of brainstorming, a feedback. And then after we have this 4 times 15 minutes, we do a short wrap-up of each table. So you stay at each table 15 minutes, I ring the bell, you move to another table. Guiding questions, table 1 deals with the policy monitor feedback and addition, so just give feedback on the policy monitor in itself. Table number 2 is more strategic questions, so we talk about, as I already mentioned a little bit, so investigating and assessing policies is a quite time-consuming job, and it's also not always up to date. So maybe you come up with some cool ideas how we can improve this. And please don't mention use ChatGPT. No, of course you can mention it. Number 3, the policy recommendations and feedback. So in general, just give us feedback, what you think about the policy recommendations. We also have printed out this 2-pager on this table, so you can there also take a look at it and give some ideas. And the last table deals with the dissemination of these recommendations. So now we have the recommendations. What do we do actually with them? How can we go from these theoretical recommendations to real practical usage? This would be very interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. And before you go, we also have the promised online part. So for the online participants, you also have 4 topics and many questions. We provided an online form. You can follow it, and also my colleague puts it in the Zoom link, Zoom chat, I guess. And you have also 60 minutes, dear online participants, to fill out this questionnaire, and then join again to the wrap-up session at around 18:20 or something like this, but you will get a notification so that you can join this wrap-up phase and also post your questions then into the chat. I hope this is clear, and now run, grab a coffee, and choose a table. Thank you. I would really like to ask each table moderator to give a very short wrap-up of the discussions so far. And also for the online participants, if there are any questions remaining, please post it into the chat and we hopefully can answer it. And Ronald, you want to start? Perfect. So we start with table number 4.
Yes, it works. Thank you very much. Yes, with table 4, well, regarding the dissemination about the recommendations, and we got here. I wrote here a lot of inputs coming up from a top-down approach. For example, that we should try to that this is integrated in the EU program, like the DigComp. The Digital Competence Framework already, and to include the European Union, I said, who is coming actually tomorrow already. Maybe also contact such associations like Informatics for All, who also have a voice within EU. But also looking to the bottom-up approach. For example, getting these teachers into the boat, because when we as GI, OCG, and whatever, have a stronger voice towards the politicians, and also the students should become fascinated, because if the students become fascinated, also the teachers maybe might get in, and so it's the snowball effect. And then also we come with the 2 pages what we have here delivered should be more or less an appendix. We should more make concise definitions and also towards the concise communication, and make a focus of policy recommendations, maybe also looking to the target groups, teachers, schools, etc. One good idea also to contact, of course, with teacher training institutes, to include them, and to look to the some in Germany especially, there exists like national-wide bodies, like the Stifterverband, the Kultusministerkonferenz, and the SWK. A good idea was also to make maybe subject-related examples for teachers, that each teacher, also from music, etc., get the fascination that data literacy and AI may be important and may be useful for me. And also maybe also the definition of data literacy. Here we should also maybe look again once more, make a short, precise definition. And finally, very important, the visualization, that a kind of I should be part of it, not to fear of losing out, but maybe with certification that I'm a school for TrainDL, I'm a TrainDL school. Yeah, that's the summary.
Cool, thanks a lot, and you're really in time, perfect. So who wants to go next? Okay, then please, weiter, Valentina, table number 1.
Okay, so with each group we had more and more ideas, and I have, I don't know, 4 pages and bored with the ideas, so try very shortly. So first, to start overall where the policy monitors can be useful. So one idea was that policy monitors can be used for the countries to see their current status. What are they, for example, here with talking about artificial intelligence and data literacy, where are they? maybe they are somewhere just missing those topics and do not address them at all. Also, there was some ideas of similar tools who was used, that in German is about informatic monitor. It was haven't written here that in UNESCO they're using some kind of monitors. Here some kind, a little bit of improvement, that it would be good not to have only online tool, but possibility to export to PDF with some visuals where you can use from that policy monitor. And here it's also one useful thing that you have to see. We say that policy monitor have evaluated all those policies, but we haven't seen the experts, so it would be good to see the concrete people and to understand their, how to say, I don't know, expertise level or the subject they are working with. Also, there was in one group and another group that missing some descriptions, legends or something like that, because people just take a look and they want to get everything at one side. They do not like to read. So you have to explain everything. Also that maybe to find concrete target group which we address, that policy monitor, do we address to policy makers or sometimes maybe just interesting data for non-policy things. And also that this tool is, everybody said that it's useful, but it's little bit not to miss it, lack little bit of the dissemination, that to spread the word about it. And here what's useful for another group, so especially for newly elected politicians to see, not to read all those documents, but you open the monitor and you see where your country is and what are the policies about the topic you are planning to work. And what we in the end, with the last group, we discussed quite a lot. So sorry, we need to periodically update the data, because in a couple of years there would be new policies and the data is not seen, and we have suggestions that how to do that. Maybe we can use some kind of events. There was suggestion that Code Week, and then with some kind to prepare the activities for updates and to create even community who are taking and working on this topic. So thank you.
Great, thank you for the summary and for the table moderation. So in the meanwhile, are there any questions from the chat? No? Okay, then let's move on to the next table. So probably Maike with staying with the topic of the policy monitor.
Yes, so we had also big discussions about how important it would be to keeping the policy monitor up to date, and if it could be kept up to date, because the project is almost over and the money, so the funding is gone, and if there's additional feedback with this kind of policy monitoring. And we got lots of interesting comments on that. So one topic that has been tackled there as well is that we should partner with other initiatives. So like, for instance, the TrainDL monitor is more updated than the EU one. So we could probably partner with EU or with Stifterverband or organizations that could continue with the funding for this kind of monitor. And then many people of you said that it's important to keep it up to date, and there were many suggestions of how to keep it up to date, also of automatizing it, or of having spokespersons for each country for the policies, so that it gets easier and not such a big endeavor to keep it up to date. And then we had also some feedback like, what could I do with the policy monitor? So for some possible target groups, it's not so clear what to do with it. So this could be clearer. And also we had discussions about who is the target audience and who uses it and how often. So it would be interesting to have a record on that. And also to track the progress. So not to have the state of the art here and right now, but to keep track of the progress, how policies evolve and go their way. That would be interesting for researchers too. Yes.
Thank you very much. Great input, and I really hope we can implement all those suggestions and feedback in the next project probably. Yeah, thanks. And finally, to table number 3, Carolin. Stage is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's probably very hard to read. As a lefty, I'm always struggling with like flip charts and stuff. But I'll explain. So we first started with the maybe possibility of expanding the target group. Right now we have CS and STEAM and primary education, but of course there are many more subjects and many more groups that can and should be included in other projects, also to gain a more diverse perspective and holistic understanding of data literacy and AI, and as to not exclude any groups. And right now, with the one we have, we discovered that computer science and STEAM are very similar, except for one point. So maybe there could also be a possibility of combining them so that, yeah, it just becomes a little tighter as a recommendation. Then we also talked about how specific and how broad can and should it be. It depends, of course, on the target audience. So for policymakers, it might be specific enough, but then for teachers, it's not really specific enough. So it needs to be very clear who the target audience is. And then right now, some people mentioned that there might be a little bit of varying levels of specificity because they, as educators, found some stuff really useful that might be a little bit too specific for policymakers, and then and vice versa. So it could be an idea to cluster again for different target audiences. And then we had a discussion on what is very specific to data literacy and AI education in general, and emphasize that, because some recommendations might also apply to other subjects, and you could build upon recommendations that are already out there. So very clearly state what is very specific to these two subjects. Yeah, and then we had a little bit of a technical discussion if the definition is specific enough or not, or if we need a shared understanding of the concept of data literacy in AI education before we can write recommendations for it. I think there was no clear consensus, which was really interesting to hear. But yeah, a little bit of a definition question there. And I think that's it.
Great, thanks a lot. And this concludes this session. Again, thanks to all of you for your valuable input. We also are interested if you have any further ideas to get your input via email or whatever else. And then I think we have finalized the workshop. Are there any questions, the last chance, from the online participants? No. In that case, I hand over to Michaeli for the last words of the day.
Yes, so thank you very much, Martin, and thank you everyone for your participation. I think we have a lot to evaluate afterwards. And yeah, that brings today's program to an end. I have learned a lot today about the present and the future of AI and data literacy education, and about also how policy processes can work. And I was also pleased to witness so many discussions among all of you. You seem to be really discussing all the time. I like that. And now I would like to invite you all on site to the Computer Games Museum, where we will have our celebration. And we prepared food for you and drinks for you and computer games that you can try out. For instance, the Commodore C64 that Carmen showed us today, and many others. And there will also be guided tours. And yeah, please join us all, and please bring your friends or your relatives if you came with someone else, because we have some space left. And yeah, to the online participants, thank you so much for participating today. Have a great evening. And yeah, see you tomorrow at 9 in the morning. Thank you.